Okay, I think I got both started right this time, correctly. So let's get started. Um, Wait, what just happened? Okay, that was wild. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started for those of us that are on time. And if you're joining us live, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do these once a month, and sometimes people tune in, and sometimes people watch later, and I appreciate that. Sometimes it's weird to talk to myself, like there's people standing here, but there's really not. Anyway, so without further ado, I'll make sure my screen is good to go on this one and there. Hi, Sharon. I could see comments this time. I'm learning this. Okay. Instagram, Facebook. Instagram, Facebook. Okay. So today we are going to be creating my finished Abiquiu. That's how you say it. On the Golden's limited edition series. I used a combination of glass bead gel, stencil, and inspiration that came from my trip to New Mexico back in 2017, hence the name Abiquiu. The design is something that I created and had made into a stencil, and it kind of reminds me of the Southwest and loved to. It's weird to speak only to the camera. Yes, I get it. Okay. Yeah, it is weird. And so this design, I drew up, I'll go over the stencil design first, and then I had Hugh Hoger. Shout out to Hugh and Sherry Hoger out in California. They own Say What Stencils, the Mad Stencilist. I had this sketch that I sent over to Hugh, and he digitized it for me, made it straight, made it able to be repeated so that everything lined up, and then created a repeat pattern for me and an extra clear plastic stencil. So if you need a stencil made and you don't have the skills to make it perfect, if it has to be geometric and lined up and perfect, Hugh is awesome. And so the first step I did, and if you need Hugh's information, just PM me or put a comment in here, I'll reply afterward. For the glass bead gel, this is Golden's extra large glass bead gel, and it's really beautiful to work with. The final result is beautiful, but it can be kind of a pain in the ass to work with. Pardon my French. So just to show you, last week I showed you glass beads that I did using the crocodile finish, and then this is a finish that I used an overall texture coverage. And so this one I created with a little bit more of a traditional French looking design. This stencil is from Melanie Royal's Royal Design Studio. And then the glass bead gel I tinted with good old fashioned Martha Stewart glitter. Facebook. Where's the camera? Facebook. Instagram. So I dumped in some glitter into the glass bead gel, and it came out, this was turquoise obviously, it came out just a really pretty turquoise color. So you really can't tint glass bead gel, because if you tint it, you cover the glass beads and you coat them, and then they won't be shiny like you want them to be. The other tricky part about working with glass bead gel is that if you don't get it into a smooth, even surface, if you build it up, you can see in areas that it becomes cloudy. So it's a kind of a tricky material to work with, and to get the hang of it, you just have to go slow and steady, and make sure you budget a lot of time into doing your finish if you're doing this in an installation setting. This was a big old packet of glitter I got at Michael's years ago with all kinds of different colors. This is a lot of fun. So us glitter freaks. Hi Deb, too bad the video keeps breaking up. We're getting about every third word. I'm sorry, it might be your internet connection, I don't know. Hopefully this will be recording and you can watch it smoothly afterward. So, all right. So in order to put the glass beads down evenly and have them not slide across the surface, you want to prep your board with Golden Makes glass bead gel undercoat. And do I have this open? Hold on, let me get my trusty opener here. So back in the day, Kathy Carroll had this material that she made called Bella Primo Primer, and it's a very fluid, gritty texture, almost like a quartz primer, and it was a dream to work with. It rolls on evenly and smoothly and creates just a little bit of a, you can kind of feel a little bit of a grit, like a sandy grit. Golden's material is a lot more thick, so you have to thin it depending on your application. The grit this down, and it's a little bit more difficult to work with. So if you have access to the Bella Primo primer from Kathy Carroll, I prefer that just because it's easier to work with, but eventually that will no longer be available, and that's the story of the decorative painter's life. Somebody makes something, it's great, and then it's no longer available. The Primo primer is a little bit more watery. I don't know if you can, I'm going to dump the whole thing out, but you can kind of see it's a little bit more watery. Michelle, totally glitter fiend after designing for Carnival Crew. Oh geez, I can't imagine that. I don't know why this keeps popping up. Okay, so in this case, I rolled on an even coat, just one coat of the primer, and I let it dry. And for our base coat color, if you wanted to change the color from white to a different color, you would base coat your color over this because this dries white. So I worked with the white color off this so that we didn't have to do a secondary step. And for the novices out there who haven't stenciled before, last week I did the crocodile pattern stencil, and I talked about laying out the pattern all over the entire surface, just marking where the stencil goes so that if you needed to jump around and wait for material to dry, you can do that. In this case, you don't have to. So, you know, pick a reference point. If you want this to line up with something, you can do that. Otherwise, just plop it down anywhere. And what I used for the stencil, and it's not really critical that you use metallic because it's going to get covered up, but I used the Golden Paintworks metallic paint and pewter tinted material to whatever color you wanted, or you could use Modern Masters. I mean, there's all kinds of different metallic paints out there. You could use, I think Melanie Royal still sells their stencil creams, and so they're really nice to work with. So I just poured some out onto a little paper plate. Don't need a lot. And the last time I stenciled, last month, I used a stencil adhesive to hold the stencil down. In this case, it's not as critical, and I'm going to be using the stencil brush because this material is a little rough. If you wanted to use a roller, you could, but you'll be pressing, and it just gets exhausting after a while. So I'm just going to hold down the edges and then just go in a swirling manner. And I don't have a lot of material on my brush. That's the key to stenciling, so it doesn't bleed under. And just swirl it around until you have it completely covered. And you really can't see the metallic, so it's not critical that you use metallic. If you want to use a dark gray, it doesn't really matter. So just keep doing your design. So you would just continue that until you have the whole thing covered. I'm going to spare the 5 minutes of your life that I would take if I were to show you how to stencil the entire thing. So lift it up, check your design. Okay, looks good. And then once that's done, then you would shift it. And in this case, the pattern itself would line up somewhere where it overlaps. So like here would be up there. So anyway, again, if you're just joining me, the stencil is my own design, and I had Hugh Hoger of Say What Stencils create it for me. I just sent him a sketch and he digitized it and cut up a couple copies for me and sent them back. He's in California, I think in Placerville, I think that's how you pronounce it. So if you need custom stencils made, he's your man. Okay, through the magic of television, dun, 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 we have a completed board. So I'll hold this up. You can see a little bit of the metallic. It's not critical because the surface is rough. It kind of takes away the shine. But you just use a gray or something. Okay, now for the fun part. So for the glass bead gel, I used glitter with my, why is this lid not going on? I dumped in silver glitter into my glass bead gel, and I did not add gold the last time, but I think I'm going to add my gold. And this kind of reminds me, like, another reason I named it Abiquiu is because when I was in New Mexico up at the Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, we had a freak snowstorm in April, and everything was covered in snow and kind of cold and crystally, and it was really beautiful. So anyway, so I'm going to dump a little bit of, not a lot, but you can kind of see how much I put in there. A little goes, and then I'm going to mix it up, and I need to get a stir stick. So hold on. Okay. It has been extremely hot here in Baltimore. I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for a big old thunderstorm to roll through. I should be careful what I ask for because that could come with some flooding. But I spent the weekend in my studio in air conditioning, purging out old paints and 20 years worth of old client files, which felt great. So I have my studio all put back together and reorganized. I don't know about you guys, but when I work on a project, everything just goes to chaos. And then before I start a new project, I have to put everything back, clean everything up, and reorganize. And this was in dire need of a major, deep rehaul. Okay, so we're not going to be able to see the effects of this when we finish today. However, I will be posting the dried board in our Finish Challenge group on Facebook. So if you're not in that group, please join us. I say this announcement every month, that my intention for this group is to create a place where we can share ideas and come up with solutions to different projects in the real world where we're not beholden to products or brands that we need to stay loyal to. So anything works, anything goes, and we can share and ask questions. And I might be posting some prompts to you guys to see, if I post a picture of a fabric or a wallpaper, maybe ask you guys how would you go about creating a finish to complement. Okay. So I have my material on my flexible Japan spatula. I don't know what you guys call this, but this is one of my favorite tools. And this is like buttering bread. So you got the grit, and I'm just going to lay down. You can kind of hear how loud it is. And it's going to take a lot of material, and the stuff is not cheap, so price accordingly. I think the last time I checked, which was before COVID, this a gallon of this glass bead gel, the extra large glass bead gel, was about $100 a gallon. So it's not cheap. And if you were to install this in a house, I have done an installation with glass bead gel, and the client is worried about, you know, being able to reverse the finish. You can install a paper liner, like a wallpaper liner, that would go onto the drywall painted surface behind your finish, so that you can basically just tear down the finish when it's time to change it. So you can see how thick this material is, and I'll take this off and I'll pull this up. Thank goodness we all mix well with our products. Yes. I'm so happy you're joining us, Michelle. Need to talk to somebody here. Okay, and then you just keep going. Now, if you haven't worked with glass bead gel before, I love it, but you just have to go slow, and you can see how flat I'm holding my spatula. Because if I hold it at an angle that's more perpendicular to the surface, I'm going to scrape it off, and I don't want to do that. Okay. So it's like spreading a nice thick layer of butter on a piece of bread. Ooh, now I'm hungry. So just keep going until you've covered your whole surface. And this is going to dry clear. And it does stay wet for a pretty long time, so you can go back and finesse your edges. And don't worry about the ridges that you see in the material. When it's dry, those will disappear. So I'm just going to keep working my material. Now, the other key with this is when you're finished applying, you want to pull your tape before it dries, because once it dries, it is hard like caulk, and it won't let your tape go, and you're going to have to score that tape line, and then you're going to break your X-Acto blade knife, and it's just going to be a pain because you're cutting through glass essentially. So, but I need to use tape. So just keep applying. So in this case, I wanted to do a full surface coverage. You don't necessarily have to do that. If you wanted to, you could maybe create like a rainfall effect, or you could kind of maybe pull it a little bit more hard so that the surface becomes a little bit more. I'm going to try this, see how this turns out. I might hate it, but who knows? I won't know until I try, right? The best part of experimentation. In the studio, when no clients are looking over your shoulder asking you what you're doing, is that the way it's supposed to look? That's the worst. You're like, yeah? Oh, did I mess up? Was this not what you were expecting? Oh, my gut sinks when a client comes in and says, are you finished? I call that the awkward teenage phase, when it's in between. I'm gonna go with this kind of skipped look down here and see how that turns out. There's another tool that I've heard people use on this surface is that red corduroy tool. I have one over here. Let me go grab it. I think this is probably more for a strié look. We're going rogue now. So this is the tool. It's like a AstroTurf type material, but it's a lot rougher. Let's see how this, ooh. So it kind of distributes. No. Now we're getting chunks and I don't like that. We're wasting a lot of material. The other thing is when you wash this, don't put it down the sink because it's glass. Rinse it off in a bucket and then you can pour off the water, let it dry, and then either toss the bucket or peel off the bottom. So I'm gonna go back and kind of flatten this out. I'm afraid it's going to dry in clumps and end up being cloudy. But I do like this kind of rain effect. Like frost on your window. All right. Scrape off the excess. So like I said, make sure you pull the tape before the material dries. If you're doing a finish where the glass bead gel isn't a solid coverage application, you don't have to be so worried about it. If you're a newbie, make sure you're pulling your tape, especially on a job, at a 45 or 50-degree angle back on itself, flat against the wall. What this does is it doesn't give you the risk of pulling the drywall paper off the wall, especially if you've been working up against a ceiling. Ceilings are notorious for having crappy drywall daubs because nobody dusts the walls anymore. Can't good help anymore. Sound like my dad. Slow and steady. Okay. All right, I'm gonna stop that there. Okay, so that's that. I'm gonna let that dry and I'll post a picture and a video so that you can see the glitter in the final picture or the final finish. Next month, I have some ideas for you. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been doing reels. This is a fabric that I got from Peyton Home, and it's a really beautiful velvet, and I just love as inspiration to create this finish. Now, this wasn't my intentional first finish. I took an idea and I kind of went beyond. This was the original one where I just wanted to do a really pretty subtle ombre. And you may have seen the reel that I posted a couple months ago about it. I did this on canvas just because that's what I had. But you can see this would be a really pretty wall finish. Kind of this ombre stripe. You could widen the stripe so there's a lot more wider transitions. So if you look at that with the fabric, this was kind of my design challenge, so to speak. It's weird how the camera changes the colors. So I could do this next month, or if you're so inclined, to kind of emulate mother of pearl, or like those capiche shells. So I could do this finish next month. So I will try and see what I'll post. Sorry, I was reading Sharon. We'll watch again. Bad video, lots of breaks. I'm sorry. Michelle, client, is that the way it's going to look? I just started prepping. And finally, well, two more things. One, here are two other boards that I did with that stencil, so you can see the difference in just, you know, what material that you use. This one I did kind of with a sandstone material, and then this one I used a metallic silver wax over a dark colored metallic plaster, and that's just got stuff stuck to it. So, and then this was our final finish from last month, the one that we worked on, the crocodile stencil. So it's got a really pretty warm metallic finish to it, and that's it. So I apologize for the video quality. I don't know if that's on my end or your end, but hopefully the final recording won't have that issue. So any questions, comments? If not, I will sign off. Okay, see ya.